The Blokebusters podcast is proud to be a member of the Podbros Network. You can find us, as well as other fantastic podcasts such as Pencil and Ink Review, Another Damn Trivia Show, and The Language of Bromance at podbros.com, as well as on most other fine podcasting services. Now sit back, relax, and prepare to share and enjoy the Blokebusters podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Film Spotlight, the Blokebusters little experiment here. I'm Brian.
I'm Paul.
And with us today we have musician and multiple podcast host, Jacob Holler. Say hello, Jacob.
Hi.
Hey,
Thanks for having me on.
Love having you, yeah, thank you.
And that was Jacob Haller. That's
all the time we have for him.
It's been a pleasure.
We really should have
forward
you
to
on.
hearing the episode.
We like to end things before they go horribly awry, so, the quicker the better. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do, Jacob, before we get going?
Yeah, sure. As you said, I'm a musician. I live in Providence, Rhode Island, and I just kind of write songs sort of in a folky, often kind of humorous vein. And then I also host or involved in like a kind of ridiculous number of podcasts. But a couple of the ones that I'm particularly excited about right now are my stepsister Lindsay is currently walking across the United States. And so I've got a podcast where every week she calls in and I record the phone call and put it online. And so that's...
I love that.
Yeah, that's it's cool to hear about her adventures and stuff. And then I have another one called Love YA Like Crazy, or Love Ya Like Crazy, which is one I do with my friend Carrie, where we talk about works of young adult fiction and kind of rant and rave about them and maybe make fun of them and swear a whole lot. And that one was real fun, too.
All right. What was the name for the first one? I don't recall if you said it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't. Good. This is a good interview question.
Oh, yes. Yes. And what was that thing that you were just talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. That podcast is named Lindsay Walks, but you can find links to my music and all of my various projects at my website, which is jacobhaller.com.
Okay.
H-A-L-L-E.
Okay, excellent.
Well, that's...
Yeah, I like the sound. I want to give that one a listen. Is that L-A-N-D-S-E-Y?
Yes,
Okay.
L-I-N-D-S-A-Y.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah.
didn't say.
All right.
So,
Well, Paul.
I may as well start diving straight in. So, the first film that we're going to talk about is the one that you really like, and we normally attempt to guess the genre, and it doesn't ever really go that great because...
Well, we really try to go for the bullseye. We don't
Yes.
just say things like action or...
Yeah, well, we have before.
Well, I mean, yes, but we're trying to narrow
Yeah.
it down a little more than that into subgenres. Yeah.
Yes, so... let me
I think
try.
I guessed first
I
last
think
time.
you did,
Yeah.
yes. I'm going to guess, for no reason other than one day it's going to be right, spy thriller.
Okay.
I like it.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep going with Buddy Cop.
Oh, these are both excellent. They're both totally wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. Are we
But I like
anywhere close, at all? Like, we always try and find...
Throw us a bone somewhere. It is a movie, yes?
Yes.
It is a movie, yes.
Okay.
So that...
Oh, we were in the ballpark.
You were pretty
Paul.
close.
Yes, we were.
Okay.
So, go on then. What film is it you've chosen?
The movie
for this one?
is... Well, I'm going to draw out the suspense a little because I'm pretty sure that I would be surprised if either of you have ever seen it. Maybe I'll be surprised, though. But the reason why I picked this movie is that it's a movie that the first time I saw it, I didn't particularly think much of it. And then it was only over time, as I kept watching it, that every time I watched it, I enjoyed it more. And now it's one of my favorite movies. So the movie in question is The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. And it was released in 2001, directed written and starring Larry Blamire. Have you seen this movie or ever heard of it?
No to both.
Perfect. Well, before I get into that, though, I am curious. Do you have any do you have any movies that are kind of in that category of the first time you saw them, you didn't really appreciate them much? I mean, I have a few, but I feel like this is the first one that I really encountered this phenomenon with.
I'm trying to think right now. I'm sure I have. I'm having a tough time coming up with examples right off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is some like that.
Yeah, I typically run more into I'll really like the film, but most people don't. Is more what happens to me, because typically what I feel about a film on first viewing is how I feel about it going forward. There have been some that I've grown to not like as much, but typically not the other way around. So
I would kind of agree with that too. I'm very critical in that regard, where I don't really give things a second chance, possibly when I should. Especially if, outside factors weigh in, I could just be tired for no reason related to the content. If I fall asleep during the best movie ever, I'm not watching it again, which is really stupid, but I just take that as a sign from my body, like I wasn't meant to enjoy it. But if I think of something, I'll let you know. But so this took you a couple viewings to appreciate?
Yeah, just to cling limpet like to my own concept, a couple that I thought of that are kind of like that are one that I've heard other people say the same thing about, and which was my experience, is The Big Lebowski.
Okay.
And then another. Actually, I haven't gone back to revisit this one, so this is one that I think might be the case. But Children of Men.
That one I don't think I ever ended up finishing.
See, I loved that from the beginning, but it's something I definitely appreciate more and more with each watch. So I started off at a pretty high level of really loving it and appreciating it, but I do seem to get, at least there are no diminishing returns, let's put it that way. I at least get the same experience out, or notice and enjoy it on different levels. But those are good examples.
Right, that was one that I noticed. Like, I watched it and I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess that was all right." And then I just kept thinking about it for the next couple of weeks. So I feel like that's one I should definitely go back and see sometime, and maybe I'll find more in there. Anyway, but to return to the movie at hand, The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. So what this is sort of a parody in a way, but I would say also a loving tribute to like terrible B movies from 40s through 60s roughly, sort of black and white bad movies, many of which I encountered first through like Mystery Science Theater 3000 or things like that. And so when I watched it the first time, like I was like, well, there are a few pretty good jokes in there, but I didn't necessarily think a whole lot about it. And then like I got it out of Netflix back at a time when streaming didn't exist and you actually got DVDs in the mail.
Right.
Cast your mind back to the long ago era of 2001, 14 years ago. That's not. That's not how math works.
Traveler, sir?
No, I'm just a little tired for some
reason. That's okay.
So I saw it and I was like, well, that was sort of interesting, and a few good jokes, but I didn't necessarily think that much of it. But I was like, I have a friend who I bet would also think it was interesting, and so I mailed it to him, and then he returned it to Netflix. And then like another friend of mine was coming to visit, and I bet that he might be interested in this one too, and so I got it out of Netflix again and watched it with him and enjoyed it a bit more. And then I did it, I think, a third time. And after the third time, I was like, I guess I just have to admit that I like this movie, and I should probably buy a copy for myself, since apparently I'm going to watch it over and over. And so I became a little obsessed with it, and it had, the DVD has all sorts of extra features on it and things. So basically, I don't even know what to say about the plot per se. It's real dumb.
Okay.
Like, basically, there's this scientist and his wife. They go out to this countryside because a meteorite has landed, and and the scientist thinks that the meteorite is made out of this substance called atmospherium, which is important for reasons that are never really specified in the movie. Meanwhile, another scientist, a bad guy, has come to the same area to find the titular lost skeleton of Cadavra, who's like this kind of legendary figure who's supposed to be in Cadavra Cave. And he finds the skeleton, and the skeleton, in order to come back to life, turns out needs some atmospherium as well. And then there's a third sort of narrative thread where these aliens land, their ship is damaged, and they need atmospherium to repair it. And that that makes the plot sound both more complicated and simpler than it really is. There's a lot of weird things that happen. For some reason, the evil mad scientist steals the aliens this device called a transmutatron, which is clearly just a cock gun with a little thing put on the end of it. And he uses it to transform 4 different forest animals into a single human woman, who he then, so that he has someone who he can pretend is his wife when he goes to the scientist to try to get to the, so anyway, this whole thing is kind of a mess.
It sounds like it.
So messes are fun sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. But the thing about it is that that's kind of the surface movie. There's also kind of this second level where the movie is not actually just a movie, but it's a movie about someone making a movie like that. So, for instance, when the director was giving instructions to the actors, when he was talking, for instance, to the actor who played the alien Crowbar, is the alien's name, Andrew Parks, he said he didn't say, okay, in this scene, here's what the alien's doing, and here's what your motivation is, and whatever. Instead, he said, okay, so your character is that you're a stage actor and this is your first chance in the films. And so you just want to hit it out of the park. So you're just acting your pants off. And so that's his character, is he's an actor in this film, just chewing the scenery in this kind of amazing way. There's a character named Ranger Brad, who is a personal favorite of mine. And his instruction, the director told him, okay, so your story is you're not actually an actor. You're an actual forest ranger, and they hired you because you could bring your own costume.
Okay, great.
And, and so on and so forth. And, this is a movie in a way it was kind of like almost method filmmaking. If that's not giving it too much credit, because, like the old movies, this was filmed, I don't know what the budget was, but it was pretty tiny. It was filmed in Bronson Canyon, which is where Invasion of the Bounty Snatchers was filmed there. It Conquered the World, Teenagers from Outer Space, a bunch of those old movies. Because of the way that LA has developed, it's actually a lot more expensive to rent now, and there's a nearby airport or something, I think, so they had to film a lot of it at night, and then digitally process it to make it look like it was day. And they filmed it in 10.5 days, partly because of the expense, so, and I think it was the script was written in under a week, Larry Blumiere just sat down and cranked it out. And so, kind of by necessity, but I think also I think also that's kind of how they wanted to do it. It was made in some of the same ways that those old low budget movies, terrible in a lot of ways, but also, if you're into that kind of thing, interesting and enjoyable to watch in a lot of ways. Some of those same kind of pressures and techniques. Larry Blumiere broke his arm, I think, during the filming, and had to film part of it, rearrange how it was filmed so that wouldn't be obvious.
Oh.
And yeah, so I know that arguably the goal of this segment is for me to convince people who haven't seen the movie to see it. I don't know if I've convinced a single person. This movie was not very well reviewed when it came out. A lot of people even people who like those kind of movies just felt like it was a mistake to try to kind of recapture, to make something that was intentionally bad to mimic these old movies. And I understand that criticism, and sometimes people found it kind of boring. Another thing, like when they edited it, the instruction to the editor is like, always start the scene slightly too early and let it run a little too long. So there's a lot of things where it just holds a beat too long. And once you're aware that that's going on, or once you notice it, it's really definitely a part of it. And I know that what I'm describing just sounds like a bad movie, like a movie that perhaps is kind of unwatchable. But I think that it is something that if the sort of general idea sounds at all appealing, it might be worth giving it a watch, and maybe even like giving it 1.5 watches and seeing if it kind of catches on for you the same way it does for me.
Yeah, it sounds like something I would be very interested in.
I would agree. It does sound super niche. Like, it's definitely has to, I think, already be part of that wheelhouse of type of films that you're into. And then once you understand what they're going for, then you can probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it even kind of sounds like, I know obviously plot different and all that, but it kind of sounds like the low budget version of what Mars Attacks tried to do, just catching on that old school.
Yeah, it's just the cover art from I'm looking at the cover art, and like I just looked at a budget at $40,000. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah, it's but also reading here that like the errors and continuity and stuff were all intentional.
Yeah,
so,
which is
well, I think that might not be entirely true.
You think that someone's giving them too much credit there on IMDb?
Well, that is a perfect way of explaining away any actual inconsistency. It's like, no, don't meant to do that.
Yeah, I meant to have the boom mic in that shot. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously you've sold us on that one, but
good.
What about the film spoke to you? Like, why is it that you like it so much?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I did kind of the reason why I enjoyed it the first time around. I can't believe I'm talking about this movie in this way, but on a surface level is like, I really do kind of enjoy. Well, I'll say this, in terms of humor, I often am kind of a fan of conceptual humor where like there's a basic concept, and I like the concept even if the execution isn't 100% great. I often will enjoy something that way anyway. And so here, like, just the idea of going back and trying to make a bad old film, like, that appealed to me in general. And so I was kind of open to that to begin with. But then also, like, as I said, there are some jokes in here that I think are just kind of genuinely funny. There's this whole long kind of broken up scene where the scientists have gone to the aliens have gone to the scientist's house, the cabin in the woods, to try to see if they can get a hold of the meteorite. And they're pretending to be human, except they don't understand humans at all. And they keep making these really dumb missteps. So there's one point where they're alone with the evil scientist, and the evil scientist accuses them of being aliens, and the husband says, "Aliens? Us? Is that one of your Earth jokes?" Which is so stupid.
God. Yeah.
But I just really thought it was funny. There's also at one point Ranger Brad shows up at the cabin to tell them that there's a neighboring farmer who has been horribly mutilated. And this is a scene in which the words horrible mutilation occur approximately 300 times. Like, that word is just said, those words are just said over and over again. And before they open the door and see it's Ranger Brad, the alien, who is still posing as human, says, "Be careful, it might be a mutant." Because they have a mutant they brought with them that escaped and is, in fact, the one that killed the farmer. So they have this long scene where they talk about the horrible mutilations, And then the scientist asks Ranger Brad as he's leaving, like, well, what do you think could do this? And Ranger Brad says, oh, I don't know, maybe a bear. And the scientist says, really? Would a bear do that? I mean, horrible mutilation? And Ranger Brad says, Mr. Dr. Armstrong, I've seen bears do things that even a bear wouldn't do.
Well, it's hard to argue with that logic.
And then the door closes. Yeah. The door closes, and Dr. Armstrong says, mutilation. I wonder. And it's just so stupid. I just loved it. So again, this is like a pitch that maybe works for me and nobody else in the world, but this is kind of why I enjoyed it the first time around. And then also I just am interested, I mean, probably as podcasters, you can have the appeal here as well. Just the idea of someone making something on a shoestring budget, like just getting together whatever resources they can and being like, well, this is what I have, this is what I want to do, and let's just do it. Which is both true of the people who actually made the movie and, according to my crackpot theory about it being a movie about itself, the theoretical people who would have made this movie in the 50s, so it's all kind of in there, and that's something I appreciate.
Well, I might have a recommendation for you. I mean, if you haven't seen it yet, one of the best worst in this kind of category that I've ever seen is a little movie called Oversexed Rug Suckers from Mars. Are you
Oversexed Drug Suckers?
Rug Suckers from Mars. Yeah, 1989. Yeah, where it is the weirdest, most awful thing. But it's the relationship you're describing with Lost Skeleton of Cadavra is kind of similar because this was a VHS rental for me. Yeah, very old timey sentence. And my friends and I kind of discovered it was just so completely absurd. And it certainly didn't hold up the way that I thought it did. I've watched it quite a few times, but it is utterly just very, very, very bad. But something about it has a charm to it. I mean, there's sentient vacuums and this homeless man falling in love with this vacuum, and these aliens return to Earth after 10 million years because we were their experiment, and they find this homeless guy. So obviously things didn't go well for us based off this one homeless guy, and so they decide to cross humans and vacuum cleaners to clean up us filthy humans, and craziness ensues from there. So maybe it's kind of the same vein. I don't know. Like I said, it's one of those, if it's definitely got to be well within that wheelhouse for you to have any chance of enjoying it. And I'm fully admitting it's bad, but fun bad. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on
it. Yes. Good luck, because I don't know if you can find it. But yeah.
So, may need to do many a Google search to run into that one.
I think the aliens are like claymation. I want to say, I believe so. But
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I don't feel like there's any point asking for a favourite moment or scene because you've given us a whole bunch of just little lines in there. And normally I say, so is there a sequel to this one? But I've actually just looked it up, and
there is.
There is a sequel, and they were trying to make a third one as well. So, have you seen the sequel to this one?
Yeah, I am. Maybe unsurprisingly, I've tried to be a Larry Blumiere completist, and so I've seen as many of his movies as I could, which is not that many. It's not that hard to be a completist. But, so The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, I would say, for me, is the one that holds up best and is that I enjoy the most. But I do enjoy the others. His next movie was in 2005, Meet the Mobsters, which is a mobster movie, but with kind of the same thing, like a lot of the same terrible dialogue and concepts, except that's a movie where he was able to cast, actual character actors from mob movies and TV shows that you would recognize, like Vincent Curatola, who played Johnny Sax in The Sopranos, has a big role in it, as I recall. And that one is a lot weirder to watch, just because it's weird to see that kind of movie where you recognize the actors. But I did enjoy it. I can't imagine what anyone who went to it thinking that it was going to be a regular old mob movie would make of it. That must have been very strange. His next movie was Trail of the Screaming Forehead, which is a claymation.
Oh, I love
think
the
Ray
cover.
Harry has it, this kind of thing. I've only seen trailers for that. Like, it was released on DVD for a very short time, and I wasn't looking for it at the time, and I didn't get it. So I've never seen that one, but I'm interested in it because that claymation stuff is just great.
Yeah, just looking at the IMDb for that, it just says a small town infestation of crawling alien foreheads that begin attaching to people and taking them over collide with a scientist's experiment to extract foreheadazine, and things go horribly, horribly wrong.
As will happen. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What the hell? I want to meet this guy and just talk to him about all these things.
Yeah, so life goals get him on. Yeah.
He put together, like, with his kind of acting troupe, because I think they do plays and things. I think they're like, it's not just movies, they're kind of based in the theater as well. And they did a bunch of shorts called Tales from the Pub, which are like 2 to 3 minute long Twilight Zone episodes, which are very strange and funny, and clearly we're just like, okay, here's a script that I wrote in 10 minutes. We're in a bar. We're going to film it. Here we go. And a lot of those are on YouTube and things. So maybe if you want to put your toe in the Larry Blumiere thing, those would be things that you could look for. I think there are a bunch of those are on Funny or Die as well.
Okay.
I'm going to have to look up that one. And here's another great thing about the Trail of the Screaming Forehead, the tagline: "Who can sleep with brows on the prowl?"
Now that is some great writing. I will give credit where credit's due.
I know.
That is fantastic.
Yeah. And the sequel to The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, The Lost Skeleton Returns Again. I looking at that one, the tagline for that one: "So terrifying you'll wish it were only a movie." So this guy seemed to really know what he's doing with this style.
Yes.
So yeah, I am gonna have to keep an eye out for these. Maybe try and find some bargain basement places somewhere. See if I can find a DVD.
And I'm sure there's a few listeners out there that this is their bag. So yeah.
This is their bag, baby.
Exactly.
And I also just want to mention quickly Dark and Stormy Night, which was released the same year as The Lost Skeleton Returns Again. And that one is a parody of like old detective movies, probably from like the 30s or 40s. And kind of my favorite thing from that, just as a conceptual thing again, is that there's two of the characters are reporters, and they are like the fast-talking variety that you would find on like His Gal Friday or something, which is a fantastic movie. Except none of their banter makes any sense. It's just like they just open their mouths and just say, quickly say whatever comes to their minds, and none of it makes any sense. And I just find that very funny. So I would say that movie I like a lot. I would say it's a little too long, but I still enjoy it quite a bit.
All right. Yeah, and I genuinely am writing down right now the name of this guy because I don't want to forget this at all.
Oh, excellent.
Does he have a Twitter? We need to find this out and tweet him.
It does. I forget what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I remember I tweeted, like, I got the sequel, I got it in the mail. I forget why, but it was just like in the middle of just a terrible couple of weeks. I think maybe it was work. I was having some real problems, and this thing came, and I just watched it, and I was like, "Oh man, this is just what I need right now." And I just sent him a tweet being like, "Thank you so much."
It does seem like just sheer escapism, enjoyment.
Yeah.
And he uses Brian Howe, I noticed, which Westworld fans will recognize as the sheriff.
Right.
Yeah, so that's awesome. I saw him right away. I'm like, ooh, I know that guy. Yeah. Paul, anything else before we turn to the dark side here?
I don't think so. I can't really think of anything else I would add to that. So, yeah, moving from the just randomness of the Lost Skeleton of Calypso. Blah, blah,
blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm going to try that one again. The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra. There we go. So, yes, we need to ask you now what this other film is, and what. As we say every time, we're not even going to bother trying to guess the genre because, well...
Too many
shitty
movies out there to pick from, so...
Yeah, it's just rip the Band-Aid off for this one.
Yeah.
What film have you chosen for the flip side of this coin?
Highlander 2, The Quickening.
Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I believe I've only seen the first one, so...
I've also only seen the first one, but I did... hear How Did This Get Made's episode on this movie, which was quite enjoyable.
Yeah, so I have a new reason to be mad at this movie. The reason why I wanted to talk about this movie, because this was kind of another a thing where I had an unusual reaction to it. Which is, I saw the first Highlander movie, which I know you guys just said you did as well, and I enjoyed it. I feel like, in terms of being the world's greatest movie, it's not, but there's a lot to enjoy about it. All the sword fight, it's just, I saw it when I was in college, freshman or sophomore year. I feel like that's a movie that's the perfect time for a young guy in the 90s to see his freshman or sophomore year in college. That's when you're probably going to enjoy it the most. There's all the cool sword fighting, and then the neat backstory, and it's got this real aesthetic to it. I'm saying all this stuff. I have no idea if you agree with me or not. What is your experience of the original Highlander movie?
Yeah, but I saw it ages ago. I genuinely cannot remember when. I believe I was still a teenager, and I recall just watching it and being like, yeah, it was alright. It wasn't anything spectacular, but wasn't terrible. And then I heard that there were 2 or 3 more, and I didn't feel the urge to need to watch them, so I've never looked.
Because there could only be one for you, right,
exactly,
Paul?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, much similar experience. This wasn't something that was on my radar in my youth. I saw this for the first time, I'd say, within the last 10 years, I guess I saw it. I was in my 20s. So there was no real nostalgia to pull from or anything like that. I did enjoy a lot of the, I guess, the stylistic choices. I definitely enjoyed Connery. How can you not enjoy Sean Connery in this? And yeah, the fight sequences were a lot of fun, and I thought it was a decent movie for what it was, but it was hard to seeing it in the 2000s to kind of gauge it with the films that were happening at that time with the effects budgets and stuff. I liked it, but it's nothing I had a strong tie to.
Right. So I had heard that Highlander 2 was terrible, and I nonetheless watched it. And it was terrible and made me kind of angry. And then, so I watched it, and then some time passed, and then I thought, you know what? Why don't I try to get the bad taste out of my mouth on that, and I'll watch the original one. And I watched the original again, and found I could no longer enjoy it.
Oh boy, it just spoiled the whole thing.
Yeah. So, so that ability to retroactively make a movie that I basically liked, no longer a movie that I could like anymore. I don't think that's ever happened with another series.
Where it retroactively ruined something for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Star Wars prequels were bad, but I can still watch the original Star Wars and enjoy it. So I don't know.
I'm trying to come up with something like TV a lot, but that's a different ball game. Right. That last season of Dexter just ruined it for me. I can't watch any of Dexter now with any sort of enjoyment. But
I don't think I'm very good at separating things out. So even if I watch something that I end up not liking, it doesn't diminish the original or whatever for me, because I see it as a separate entity. And so I don't know if I've ever run into something that has ruined the franchise for me, but I can definitely get behind watching something and just immediately understanding, oh no, this is terrible.
Yes, what have they done? Yeah. And what did they do in
this one? Yeah. So I think part of the, by the way, I forget. I feel like spoilers are okay.
Oh yeah, especially for the bad one, because we don't care if people watch this one.
Yes, they can pause and listen. Yes, if you have any desire to see the quickening, pause right here and resume when you're finished.
So, like, part of it is that Highlander 2 is, like, I feel like the original Highlander movie more or less kind of, like, it was cartoony definitely, and it was edited like a music video, but it more or less took its just central concept seriously. And then Highlander 2 has a bunch of superficial similarities, but it's also, I feel like in Highlander 2 they basically wanted to make RoboCop. It's like the cartooniness is ramped way up. They're like these two bad guys early on that just laugh like I forget his name, but like in Return of the Jedi, Jabba the Hutt's sidekick there,
Salacious Crumb,
Salacious Crumb, they laugh like him, and except a lot more, and it's really annoying. The special effects, they're like, it takes place in the far distant year of 2024. So there are, whereas the previous one was like basically present day for a lot of it. This one, it's set in the future, but the special effects are really terrible, and it's not particularly compelling. And then there are all these like cartoony made up like TV ads and things. Which is why I feel like they wanted to make RoboCop and just completely failed. And so that's kind of why it's a bad movie. I think why it made me dislike the first one is because despite these kind of stylistic and differences, it keeps making links back kind of structurally to the original one. So like the original one starts out with Connor McLeod at a wrestling match in Madison Square Garden, and then he leaves and has a fight in a parking garage. And then in the second one, and while he's at the wrestling match, like he kind of has this flashback to, when he was a young lad in 15th century Scotland or whenever it was. And in this one, he's an old man because he's been aging naturally now that the end of Highlander 1 has happened. And he's at an opera, which is, of course, the more exciting version of a wrestling match.
Obviously.
And he kind of nods off, and he suddenly remembers the actual, according to Highlander 2, pre-story to Highlander, which is that he and Sean Connery and all these other people who later became immortal were aliens from the planet Zeist, and they were rebels there, and they were exiled to Earth, where they would become immortal and have to battle until there was one of them left. Like, and you're like, first of all, this makes no sense. Like, none of this makes any sense. Why is he remembering this now? And also, Zeist, like, what? And then why would you exile someplace to a place where they're immortal? And it's just so stupid and terrible. And then he wakes up and he goes out. He gets a sense of the old quickening, which makes him realize that there are other people from Zeist now on the planet who are going to try to kill him. And why did they come and try to kill him? He was about to die of natural causes. He's like 90 years old or whatever.
Yeah, they stayed away.
I really can't. I'm sorry to interrupt here, but I really hope this Michael Ironside quote is true. He said, "Yeah, listen, I hated that script. We all did. Me, Sean, Chris. We were in it for the money on this one."
Yeah, well, that's what I remember hearing at the time, and they said, "Yeah, this one is terrible. Like we just did it because the studio
because they're contractually obligated. Yeah,
but we're gonna do another one, and that one's gonna be the one that we really want to make, and it'll be good." And then my understanding, I haven't seen that one because like, fool me once, shame on me. But fool me twice, shame. Or no, I got that completely backwards. But you know what I mean. And I haven't seen the third one, but word is that it was, if possible, even worse than the second one.
Endgame, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or wait, no, the Final Dimension. Well, there's been there's a shitload of them.
Yeah, they keep churning them out. And there was a TV
series I heard wasn't too bad. I never watched it, but
yeah. So yeah, I think I saw bits and pieces of it, but never really got into it. Anyway, so the structure is kind of similar, except it's a much worse thing they do the second time. But then the result was that when I watched the first one again, everything reminded me of the second one because it was the same structure. And flaws that were in the first one that you could kind of think of as one-offs, like you perhaps do not recall this, but one of the conceits of the first one seems to be that when a woman finds out that you're immortal, they just want to have sex with you immediately. Like there's an actual scene in the first one where the female lead, who is a forensic detective and also an expert, a published expert in ancient antique swords for some reason, she does some investigation and figures out that he is actually much older than he seems. So he goes and confronts him at his antique shop. And he says, I am Connor McLeod. I was born in whatever year, and I'm immortal. And he gives her a knife and then stabs himself with it in the stomach.
Yeah. And
then doesn't die. And she just immediately wants to have sex with him. So that's like a really stupid thing that on watching the first movie you might just kind of laugh at the ridiculousness of it. But then the same kind of thing happens in the second movie, and you're like, oh no, this is just like a thing that these guys do in these movies, apparently. And it just makes it harder to just kind of let it go when I watch the first one, at least for me. Other people might.
No, I get that, yeah. If they're just following the same beats and, using the same gags or whatever you want to call them over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at the very least, if you're going to do that, you've got to write it properly. And just...
I'm looking at my notes. One of the things early on is, to info dump on you a little, there's a statue of people under a shield. And then the inscription underneath the statue is 25 years under the shield, 1999 to 2024, which is why it's 2024. Like, why do you make a statue for 25? Like, why does that statue exist? 25 years under the shield, so that 25 years later your children can go and look at this thing and you're like, oh yeah, 25 years ago we've been doing this for 25
years.
Very
narrowed view there.
It's a weird anniversary. It's normally a round number rather than a midway there.
Or just leave it erected at with date.
Maybe they change the title of it every year. So
right, they re-engrave it. 26 years, sort of like one of those. Like it's been 5 years since our last workplace.
Yeah, they just have to keep chiseling out. Re-engraving.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't. Yeah, I'm kind of good not watching this one. I think. Because
that would be my advice.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, it's been a while since I've seen Highlander, but didn't Sean Connery come into a little situation, like a kind of head loosey situation.
Yes, well, that's an interesting question.
And
right
so
there.
he is in this movie.
Right. Despite having died,
Yeah.
I think approximately 400 years ago in the chronology of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay. I'm glad my memory was right there.
And Sean Connery shows up. So basically, one of my new reason for hating this movie is that it now appears in. There are several versions of it, various directors cut things.
Okay.
And so the version that you can get now, which I watched because I'm an idiot, who apparently enjoys inflicting pain on himself, is the current version, which you only find out if you watch to the very end in the credits when it says 2004 edition.
Okay.
Like right before the credits roll, it says Highlander 2, 2004 edition. I was like, well, I could have known that about an hour and a half ago, and that would have been great.
Was that the Renegade? Is that what? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, the Renegade version.
But even, like, I got the one that didn't say Renegade version, but it was still, that's what it was. I guess. So they recut it and changed it around so that all of the references to Zeist were removed.
Which really cleaned things
instead-
up, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, they're coming from the past for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know. None of it bears close scrutiny. But
And all
anyway.
the guns were changed to walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
So there's a scene which I don't remember if was in the original version of Highlander 2 that I saw or not, but there's a little scene when he's flashing back from the opera where Sean Connery, before their exile, tells him, you know, you and I are linked in a special way, and if you ever need me, call my name and I'll come. So then when in the fight that follows after he leaves the opera, he calls out Sean Connery's character's name, which I don't remember. And so Sean Connery is called back into existence, except he's in Scotland where he died on stage, where there's a production of Hamlet going on. And there's a lot of, you know, really awesome humor that they wring out of that situation. You know, actually, like, Sean Connery is enough of a character, like, the quality of his acting aside, and also the quality of his real life personality, which I understand is not great.
Yeah.
He is just someone who's fun to watch on screen.
Agreed.
So there is kind of a sense where, like, Sean Connery shows up and you're kind of like, oh, you know, maybe this movie won't be so terrible. And then he dies again. And then you're like, well, screw this movie. This is terrible.
But you still have Michael Ironside and Virginia Madsen, and they couldn't. I guess they weren't enough to
John
make
C.
anything out of this
McKinley as
either.
well.
I
He's
know.
only quite good.
There's some good actors in this, but apparently
Yeah,
not a good
and I
script
mean-
in this.
Yeah, and
No. And actually, I mean, I would even, I'm sure he would love to hear me phrase it that way, but I would even defend Christopher Lambert as, like, someone who, I think is kind of an likable screen presence. Because, and I say that not so much because of these movies, but some other bad movies. You're just getting all my bad movies now. I don't know. Did you guys see Mortal Kombat the movie?
I believe
Long
I
time
saw
ago,
it
I
now.
couldn't tell you one thing about it though. Yeah,
Yeah. So it doesn't. Nothing about that movie matters.
that's what I remember. I remember not remembering.
Like as a video game movie released in the era where Netflix didn't exist yet, you know, it was an enjoyable enough way to pass some time in the theater. That's what I would say about that movie. But Christopher Lambert plays Raiden in that movie. And then there was a sequel, Mortal Kombat 2, which I saw with a friend
Annihilation.
who I also saw Mortal Kombat 1 with, thinking, well, the first one was kind of fun, and this one probably will be too. And it was not, that was a bad movie. And they couldn't get Christopher Lambert for it. I don't know why not, but they couldn't.
I believe
some other
I
guy.
heard about that, and yeah, he did just flat out say, I'm not doing a second one.
Yeah. So me and my friend watched this movie, and then we like kind of silently filed out of the movie theater, and then my friend Craig turned to me and said, I never before had such an appreciation of Christopher Lambert's screen presence.
Oh my god. And you said, what did you just say?
No, I totally got it, because the guy they had fill in for him just was very bland and unmemorable. And Christopher Lambert, is not unmemorable. Yeah. So, sorry if you're listening to this, Mr. Lambert. I really do enjoy some of your roles and things. It's hard for me not to just give you backhand compliments.
And hey, if Mr.
no
Lambert is listening to this, then sure, why don't you come on?
Come on, yes.
Yeah, do the rebuttal.
And you were saying you couldn't remember Sean Connery's name, and I don't know how you couldn't remember his name. It is the incredibly Scottish-sounding Juan Sanchez Villalobos.
He's a Spaniard.
He's not a Spaniard.
No, he's not. That's right. Yes,
he's Egyptian.
Egyptian, yes, but yes, people mistakenly refer to him as Spaniard. Like I just did.
It's a thing of Sean Connery, who can never not sound like Sean Connery, playing someone that isn't Scottish. So it's like, okay.
Well, that was kind of one of the things I remember people saying about Highlander. Like Highlander is a movie that is very easy to joke about. First, like there can be only one, but then there are all these sequels. So that's a good joke. That's an obvious joke to make. But also that you would have a movie called Highlander and have Sean Connery in it playing an Egyptian, while a French guy plays the Scottish character. Is, I don't know if that's stunt casting exactly, but it's an interesting approach to casting.
It is. It's just like asking Kevin Costner to do accent work. You know what you're getting. So.
Right.
Well, my question then is, what I like to ask here is, let's say somebody brought the film to you and said, fix it, please. What would you do to change it?
Barring a lighter and gasoline.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything that could be done to this film that would redeem it at all?
I mean, I think that there are, there wouldn't necessarily be a ton left of it, but I think that you could do a sequel to Highlander that wouldn't be terrible. Although my tendency would maybe to want to do more of a prequel.
Right.
Maybe that would kind of ruin it too, though, because I feel like one of the strengths of the original movie is that it doesn't spend a lot of time explaining things. Like, okay, like there are these people and they live forever and they fight with swords. Like, what more do you want? We're not going to tell you why any of this is true. And that's actually one of the problems with the sequel, is that it really explains everything, and the explanations don't make any sense and don't help. Let's see.
I mean, I feel like maybe a sequel would work because obviously he's mortal, but then towards the end of his natural life, maybe if more were born, so, or like reached however it exactly works, and then he became immortal again, and now he was sort of stepping into the Sean Connery role of explaining to the new generation what's going on.
Oh, I like that. Or it could even be because at the end of Highlander 1, he realizes that now he will age and die like normal people, and also can have children. So maybe he has a child, and something happens that kind of re-triggers the old Highlander stuff, and he has to.
This movie's already been made to excellent standards, I think, and it was called Logan.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that yet.
This is very much traveling that same path. So
well, I'm really tapped into the zeitgeist. So make that movie 20 years ago and have it starring Christopher Lambert.
There you go.
And
I'm into it.
Yeah. So right, instead of making that movie, make a much better one. I think that's a good way to fix it.
Oh, well, there you go. Now Logan is just the child of McLeod. So there you go.
Oh, now you've you've done it, Paul. You've ruined Logan for me. Okay. Hey, all right.
I haven't even seen it yet. Yeah.
No, nothing can ruin that movie for me. Okay.
They need to hype it up too much, then, right?
No. Hey, I can't. No, you'll be fine. Yeah. Well, Paul, do you have
I can't say it's like, what would you actually say is the worst thing in the film? Like, is there, like, obviously you can have a favorite moment or scene in films that you like, but is there like a worst moment or scene that just
like eye rolling out of your head, have to pick them back up, scoff, like, get the F out of here?
I mean, it's got to be. It's hard to pick one. I mean, the script definitely is terrible, but also a lot of the performances, like, they really, I said that they wanted it to be real cartoony. There's a guy who plays the head of the Shield Corporation, which was funny now that I've now the Marvel series, but this guy, I think, I can only assume this is due to direction. Like, his performance just makes, like, Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, seem subtle. It's really...
Yikes.
It's really something.
Uh-huh.
It's real hard to watch. And, and there's... that kind of stands out in my mind, but the cackling villains, like, there's just so much there's just nothing good about the movie.
All right.
I mean, Sean Connery is kind of fun in parts, but there's just nothing good. There's just nothing there.
All right. So,
I'm more disappointed than angry. It's just not good.
do see The Lost Skeleton of Cadaver. Do not see.
Yeah, do not see anything past Highlander
1. Yes. Got it.
Yes, there is only one.
There is only one that you should bother watching. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'd say it's been fun. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'm happy I didn't watch that movie.
Me too.
Good call.
Well, thanks a lot for coming on, and why don't you take the time now to let people know where they can find you, how to get a hold of you, all of that good stuff.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun. Even though I ended up watching two movies I didn't like, which doesn't seem quite fair, but I did it to myself. Certainly.
Yes.
I can't actually blame that on you, as much as I would like.
Hey, we'll take it if you want to dish it our way.
Yeah. So my name's Jacob Haller. You can find all of my, links to all of my music and podcasts and things at my website, jacobhaller.com. You can also find stuff on Bandcamp if you look for Jacob Haller. And my website, I just said. My Twitter account is at JWGHALLER. And you can find me on Facebook, and really just Google me and you'll find like a million web pages, because I'm a total self-promoter apparently. And I hope that you enjoy what you find.
Yeah,
excellent.
I'm sure they will.
I enjoyed listening to Tell Me About Your Song. I listened to 3 episodes and loved them all. So
awesome!
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you that don't know already, you can find us just as Jacob was saying. Just search Blockbusters, you'll find us.
Just misspell Blockbuster, and it should take you there. And yeah.
Yeah, our website is not as polished as Jacob's here, but we try, damn it.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were going to say as much as Blockbusters, but we're still a thing, so yes.
Yes. We definite shoestring budget ourselves here, so even more so than the Lost Skeleton. So, yeah, all right. Well, I think that's it from all 3 of us here. So, I've been Paul.
I've been Brian.
Oh, and I've been Jake.
Sorry, I was cutting you off there.
Yeah, yeah.
I wasn't sure.
No, it's fine. I thought I'd give you the chance to jump in there, and eventually you took it. So well done, you.
Yeah, after a few minutes.
That's what editing is for.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. And now, of course, with this bit being funny, the question is whether to leave that all in or not.
I'm guessing it will be in because it's less work for you.
Yeah, exactly. I'll just shorten the pause a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it from us. Bye, folks.
We'll see ya.
So long.